You don't need security before you have 100 or more paying users, except for some special businesses. Devs, once again, thinking that they save time by doing a useless thing faster. I'll be honest, I expected some amount of pushback with what we built with Upload Thing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we did everything perfectly, but I certainly did not expect the pushback to be as straight up dumb as a lot of it is. Normally my haters are smart. I'm kind of disappointed. I have seen some pretty thoughtful, absurdly detailed, weird ways of hating on me in the past. But basically all of the things I've seen trying to crap on what we built with Upload Thing have been brain dead, would be putting it lightly. Some of these things are like reasons I would never hire a person. And I want to go through some of the highlights here, some of the best of the stupid things people have been saying about Upload Thing. But first, a word from today's sponsor, me. Well, Upload Thing. I'm not going to put sponsors on Upload Thing videos. Technically, Upload Thing pays me, but that's because it's my company. I'm actually probably going to lower my salary from ping/Upload Thing yet again because we're making the money from the ads and whatnot. But obviously, I'm biased. I built Upload Thing. It's part of my company. No other sponsors will be on this video. But I want to dive in because there's some fun stuff here. And honestly, one of the coolest things I've learned throughout all of this is how much free marketing you get from the nonsense hate. This one got 60K views. I'm sure this video will get 60K views or more as well. Some of them done even better, and we'll get to those in just a moment. He will print money by selling this to developers because it's a cool tool, but devs won't make money by adding it to their apps because customers don't care about a slightly better upload button. There's a lot of other things in Upload Thing that you should care about, like the fact that it basically makes it impossible to do your uploads in an insecure way. We handle all the weird edge cases with S3. We have some of the best components in the industry to actually trigger the file uploads. Full TypeScript support end-to-end, way easier to understand pricing, and so much more. Like, we didn't build Upload Thing because we can print money with it. We built Upload Thing because I was annoyed it didn't exist. And I promise you, we're not printing money on it. We're doing okay, but it's not even at the point where it can cover the 2 devs working on it full time. So yeah, we're getting there, but we're not there yet. As Christian called out, thank you for the defense here. It's not just that. We must also consider the security holes that exist in many S3 implementations, which is what he replied with this beautiful banger. You don't need security before you have 100 or more paying users. This one was funny because this is a person who I don't normally agree with, but they said you should absolutely have things be secure. He replied, you store pictures of credit cards on S3? No, but yeah. Thankfully, most people came in here and roasted it for being as dumb as it was. But this isn't even the only dumb take we got. This one frustrated me. Tony's historically been fine and fun to interact with, so this was kind of out of nowhere. He quote tweeted our release, the 5 times faster release, the one that is absolutely blowing up on YouTube right now. 64K plays in 12 hours is insane for me. Like, it's one of my best performing videos ever. So clearly people do care about this, but sure. It's also worth noting that my customers are developers. So if I make a thing that developers care about, that means they're more likely to use my product, which even outside of the fact that obviously I want them to use my products, it makes us more money and it makes our business more successful, with my ultimate goal of making file uploads and management safer, easier, and more reliable on the web, tricking developers into thinking about my product more is a great thing. So if my goal is to get more end users uploading through Upload Thing, this is still a really strong strategy. That said, users absolutely care. I had a fucking 3-month back and forth with Frame.io because I was one of the early consumers of the V4 Frame beta. If you're not familiar with Frame, they're going to get some free promo here. It is like code review for video. So if I go to my Frame account here quick, here are all of the videos that FaZe has been working on. And I can dive in here, leave comments. The team can give feedback as well. It is built for streamlining the video pipelines that content creators like myself, big businesses doing like Hollywood production and whatnot, need to manage the stuff. We're often transferring massive files through this, like just insanely large files. Like I'll do 500 gigabytes through this in a day regularly. At some point, some change was made where I could no longer upload to Frame at faster than 200 megabits per second, which is insanely slow when I have a 2 gig connection here. And I was frustrated and annoyed. Even downloads were going that slow, which was insane because I have 2 to 3 gigabit down and I was downloading at like 30 megabytes per second. It was horrifyingly slow considering what I'm paying for and the fact that the service is meant to be really fast and reliable for professionals. I probably sent 100 emails, worked with a dozen support people and case managers at Frame, eventually learned that there was an engineer there who was a fan of my videos. Shout out to that engineer if you happen to be watching. Don't want to out you, but I know you, man. Thank you for the work. They eventually spun up a Slack thread internally about it that supposedly had over 300 messages in it, at which point they identified a regression in the desktop app for downloading. And when they found that and fixed it, immediately saturated my 2 gig line again. So yes, as an end user, I cared enough about my upload and download speeds to spend a month of my time going back and forth constantly just to make my upload and download speeds better. And this isn't me as a dev. The fact that I'm a dev means I knew it could be fixed, but my willingness to go all in on that came from me as a customer wanting those speeds to be better. And in an ideal world, Frame would be absolutely able to use Upload Thing. And in fact, if they had used Upload Thing, they never would have had these problems. And that's the goal of building it the way that we're building it. I think I made my point with Frame. I personally very much expect my uploads and downloads to be fast. I'm spending a lot of money on my local network for them to be fast. I want what I pay for. And yes, your upload and download speeds are a thing that users care about. It might not be on the list of features that they're signing up for, but it is absolutely a thing they notice, especially if it gets worse or it's not using their network the way they would expect. And if you have 2 services that do the same thing, like I almost moved from Frame to Dropbox because Dropbox would saturate my connection and Frame wouldn't. And Dropbox is cheaper. I'm paying $15 a month for my whole team for Dropbox. I'm paying $15 a month per person in Frame. They were about to throw away $60 a year because they didn't have fast enough speeds. So yeah, customers care. I'm not saying every customer cares all of the time. I'm not saying the difference between a 2-second and a half-second upload of a profile picture is like an end-all be-all thing. I'm saying that there are absolutely people who care about these things, and I know that because I'm one of them. Thankfully, this one was very good free marketing. 1.3K likes and 150K views, which is funny because his got 300 likes with 90K views. So yeah, very convenient. And as I called out, our customers are developers. Their customers care about the improvements that we're making. Don't worry, we'll continue fighting to optimize uploading further than anyone has ever before. Thank you for caring. And good old Antonio calling out why he did it. He got free views for it. Another dumb take. See, he's automatically right, because instead of answering with, yeah, I spoke with customers and they confirmed this matters to them, you just defended it from a dev's perspective again. I talked to a lot of customers. Resumability was a common ask. I personally am a customer too. This upload thing was built for my specific needs. The joy I felt with the faster uploads was real. You can see it in all of the Pick Thing demos. I built something that makes myself and my customers happy. It helps them build great solutions for their customers too. Just insane to accuse me of all people of not talking to their customers. I did 3 calls with customers yesterday. I care probably too much, but also I am the customer. And that's the thing this reply misses that is so hilarious to me. I answered as a customer because I am a customer of Upload Thing. I have like 20 apps deployed using it and I will continue to use it. If someone else had built Upload Thing, I would be a huge advocate for it, but no one did. That's why we made it. So yes, I didn't list the specific things I had heard in customer meetings because I am a customer. So I can assert that this is true because I know it is true. Thank you, chat, for confirming that I'm not fucking insane. Customers care, and especially when said customers and consumers are devs. I pay for 1 gig internet. I definitely want my services to reflect that. Otherwise, I would just save the money. Totally agree. Here's a fun one. You guys suck at making fun of Theo. Here's how it's done. Kind of sad that you didn't make it as a skateboarder. Now we all have to suffer through your inability to code. How many of those PRs were actually yours, Theo? Good roast. This account has some pretty good roasts, by the way. Might be worth following. Things by Ping at ping.gg. Here's another good one. Ben Holmes did a fun showcase of how insanely fast and good Pick Thing is at removing backgrounds. The image he used isn't super challenging because of the bokeh, which makes it easier for most AI and algorithms to figure out what the foreground and background are. I also realized I did the layout here terribly, so I need to fix the layout because I very much was assuming 16 by 9. Once it's uploaded, backgrounds are moved flawlessly. So yeah, cool showcase, cool highlight. Picked up ping.gg if you're curious. Stop being so nice about Pick Thing. Theo actually made this one. He's going to start thinking he's a good dev if we're not careful. Yeah. Why am I the only person who can write good Theo burns? Don't feed his ego, Jamin. He already thinks he's so clever for his naming thing. This is actually a really funny one. Jamin said, can I have a transparent PNG for this? I could use Theo's pick thing. Can't remember what it's called. I literally wrote this not knowing. I hate this makes me like your stupid naming scheme, Theo. Winner. CJE in chat. I could remove the background better in Affinity in 45 minutes. Yep. Here's a good one from Greg, an old friend and an investor. How about, all the successful tech CEOs are pushing hard for return to office. Ping doesn't even have an office. What are you doing? Can you add a ChatGPT integration that doesn't help anybody and loses money so that we can market on AI? No comment. I might have had to say that we're sneaking in a AI integration for things so that we could get a bigger grant from Amazon. That would be absurd if I did that. Totally not real. Anyways, the video I just posted, we stopped using serverless. The results are insane. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about this video that didn't watch the video. They only saw the title, and they went a little in on said title, which was funny for me. Forcing myself to say this even though I don't want to, but T3.GG is an unreliable model for developers and engineers. First, he advocates edge computing, then went against. Then he advocated for serverless. Now he has moved off from it. Principles and truth must be timeless. I'm going to do a fun thing. Chat, can you describe in 2 sentences or less how my perspective on edge and serverless have changed? What have I said before that I have since walked back? Looking at your earlier videos, there actually is some perspective change, mostly in the room that I'm filming. Yeah, a little bit less of a Lambda fanboy, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, my perspective on edge was very simple. I didn't like edge locations for running your code because most code running on servers needs to access data that is centralized in some form. So if you have a database that's US West 2, and you're running workers or Cloudflare Edge Compute or Vercel Edge Functions or whatever all over the world, it is not better than if you had just had that code running right next to your database, because now it has to do a longer distance traveled there. I spent a lot of time diagramming this out, like a lot of time diagramming this out. So the only thing that is being mentioned there isn't the video, it's the title. And it's funny. I had a video 9 months ago, why am I moving off of Edge? As well as 4 months ago, Vercel gave up on Edge. And also, before then, I'm done with serverless, star. And this is the one where I start pushing Edge. But I specified, I'm sure I can find it pretty quickly in here. Oh, there's the perspective change. God, my mustache was so awful initially. I'm going to mute it because I don't feel like hearing myself. And I'm sure you guys are tired of it, obviously, because you're watching my video. The demo I do here, I have the server. And I have the server doing multiple back and forth. We'll say the first one is checking off. The second one is getting some data about like a blog post. The third one's getting comments. But it's doing these 3 back and forths of the database. So if I have the server really close to the database, the distance traveled there is much smaller. But if I move it at all, like I move it closer to the user, the overall distance being traveled on the network has gone up exponentially. I have been calling this out since I started, to the point where I got crap because I was pushing for the term edge runtime to be separated from edge compute. Because the reason I liked edge was never that it is running right next to the computer that you're trying to load the page from. The thing I liked about edge, actually, we'll ask chat again. What did I like about edge? What was the reason that I was pushing for edge, and specifically the edge runtime? There was one simple, specific thing. Look at that. Chat immediately. No cold starts. When you spin up a Lambda on serverless, time has to be spent spinning up a node instance. And that time spent spinning up node is a real penalty to getting a response to your user. Minimum 150 milliseconds is fair. And when you're using things like Prisma and making native database connections, it can get a lot worse, which means in some cases, users have to wait up to 2 to 3 seconds to get a response from the website. Even if the thing that your server is doing only takes 100 to 300 milliseconds, all of the other things that it has to do to spin it up were problematic. Edge runtimes are much more limited because they're not a full node instance. If you have packages that are doing things like hitting file system, if you have packages that are doing things like making a native database connection, you cannot use those on edge. On one hand, this sucks because it means that you can't use a lot of the tools and technologies you might be used to. But on the other hand, it's actually a pretty strong benefit because when you do things this way, you're able to lower the cold start time down a ton. If I load a new JavaScript file into my browser, I don't have to wait for the browser to start up. It just runs it because it's already running the JavaScript VM. And that's how Edge runtimes work. They have JS VMs already running, and you're just launching a JavaScript file inside of that VM, which is a huge difference. It means you can't call things from Node. It means you can't call file system. You can't do a lot of that stuff. It also means you can't make a native database connection. You have to do it over HTTP and things you can do through fetch. But now we could reduce that start time down to almost nothing, which is why Cloudflare workers are able to respond much faster than Lambda can in those scenarios. That said, the workers are both less capable because they don't have those native functionalities, and they're slower at actually doing the work because they are lower provisions. The infra people should surrender Edge to the web people. You'll already have an alternative term for Edge locations, global. Here's a diagram I made because I was annoyed about people not getting what these things mean. Terms for JavaScript server locations and runtimes. Edge location is global. Not Edge location is regional. Not Edge runtime is Node. Edge runtime, we just call it Edge runtime. I know from a lot of Cloudflare employees that they call the actual thing that runs the JavaScript code you use on Cloudflare the Edge runtime. The formal name for their implementation is workerd, but the name of the concept of the JavaScript runtime that they are using for these specific characteristics of having fast cold starts and being distributable, that is called the Edge runtime. We even have an ex-Cloudflare employee in chat that is modded confirming, yes, Edge runtime is a term that is used to describe the JavaScript runtimes built to work well on Edge. It doesn't mean it's not an Edge runtime if you take it out of the Edge. The same way that if you take a car seat out of a car, it's still a car seat. If I put a car seat in my living room, it's just a car seat in a living room. If I put an Edge runtime in a regional location, it's still the Edge runtime. It's just running in one region. And people are saying, so it means Cloudflare workers. There are other Edge runtimes. There's even one that is being worked on at AWS right now. I have a whole video about it, so check that out. I was the only person who covered that for like 2 months. It was kind of nuts. There are plenty of these. But the term Edge runtime refers to JavaScript runtimes built with the goal of being runnable on the edge due to their performance characteristics and traits. So when I'm referring to Edge runtime, I'm referring to this box. So no, my stance on Edge hasn't changed. I wasn't misleading people, pointing them at Edge. In fact, this video does a great job of showing why Edge location is not good. I even reference a data throughput test where you can choose whether or not this is running on Edge functions, and you can see the performance characteristics and how they change based on the number of queries that you're doing. And if you don't have these things located well, you're screwed. It's bad. So check out this video, because this is the video where I pushed everyone to the edge. I think it'll showcase just how silly that argument is. One good question about the cold start thing is, doesn't Lambda make more sense when you have a lot of users so the Lambdas don't die? Someone's always going to have to hit a cold start. If you have 1,000 users and those 1,000 users are keeping a bunch of Lambdas alive, but 1,001st user comes in when all those other 1,000 Lambdas are currently taken, that 1,001st one has to have a new Lambda spun up. It is admittedly, for really big apps, less than 5% of invocations, but that 5% sucks. And if you can avoid it entirely, it's worth doing. But the reality is that these edge compute solutions do have some gotchas, the ones that I just listed. And while I am willing to eat shit and push through them, and there's also a lot of work going on, like this was linked here, Cloudflare is working really hard to get as much node compatibility as possible in their Cloudflare workers, using polyfills and native code to add as much of those behaviors as possible. It's still not real node. And there's a lot of reasons why people want real node, be it they want their native database connections, they want to take advantage of the higher performance you can do on bigger boxes, they want to use like async local storage and a bunch of the cool like backgrounding stuff you can do there. There's a lot of stuff. Even just you want to write C in native code. Cloudflare can't do that for you. I think we have now reasonably established that I never advocated for edge computing. Ever once. Never, ever, ever. I have never said we should do our compute on the edge. Ever. And if somebody could find a quote of me saying otherwise, I would love to see it, because I have explicitly advocated against edge computing from day zero. I'm like the anti-edge guy to the point where I got into shit with the edge advocates that have slowly come around since. So no, I am notoriously anti-edge. And now, the serverless bit. Then I advocated for serverless, and now I've moved off from it. I'm sorry. Am I against serverless? Can anybody in chat honestly say that I've ever done a thing that even vaguely came off as anti-serverless? Yes, Theo hates serverless. I am like the serverless advocate. I've acknowledged its limitations. And it's obviously kind of funny that like right after I broke up with Vercel, we stopped using serverless for one of our main endpoints. But I am very pro serverless. I come off as a serverless fanboy. Damn right, because I am. I'm a huge fan of serverless. I have a whole video I'm doing soon that I have titled, it's here. I'm actually going to try and film it today. The truth about serverless. And I have a bunch of things I want to talk about here because I love serverless. I am more than down to acknowledge its trade-offs and failures, but it is so good. And funny enough, the cost scales to 0 for 0 users. This is part of it, but not the way you think. Make sure you check out that serverless video if you want to hear more, because the truth about serverless might surprise you. But again, to be very, very clear, of the 30 or so apps I have deployed right now, and the 5+ that I'm working on right now, all of them are serverless. Every app I build is built using serverless technology for most, if not all, of the infrastructure. There is one single exception for one single infrastructure problem, which is the ingesting of large numbers of files from large numbers of people, where a server makes more sense. And the reason that we built servers for Upload Thing is so that you don't have to for your serverless application. The benefit of database platforms like PlanetScale, Terso, and Neon, the benefit of upload support services like Upload Thing, the benefit of queuing and Redis services created by companies like Upstash, the benefits of all of these things are that they enable you as a serverless developer to not have to spin up a server to do this one small thing on the side. And that is the point. I am running servers with Upload Thing so you don't have to. And more importantly, so I don't have to on any of the apps that I build. PickThing does not have a server. Ping does not have a server. MarkerThing not only does not have a server, MarkerThing doesn't have a database. It's just using the Twitch API for everything and Clark for the authentication. It's great. The code is so beautifully simple. When you build serverless, it lets you significantly reduce the amount of complexity in your architecture and in the code paths being hit. Not even for the serverless part, but for the stateless part. And one more important detail with serverless is if you do decide you need a server in the future, you can run your serverless code on a server. So it's not like you're locked in, but if you run code in a server and you don't build it in a stateless way, and you then decide that it'd be better to have it on serverless, you're rewriting that code. So yeah, the point I'm trying to make here is that I am almost to a fault a serverless advocate. I will defend it more than I probably should. And me, for a complex infrastructure problem, for a service that we are building to make it easier for serverless devs to do things, that isn't me coming out against serverless. That is me tripling down and doing things I and my team don't want to do in order to allow more developers to stay on serverless for more of their work. The reason we moved to serverless has nothing to do with cold start times. It's the ability to have a long-running server if an upload takes longer than the 45 to 90 seconds it takes for a Lambda to die. And I shouldn't have to spin up one Lambda for every single file upload. If I have one user uploading 15 things and they spin up 15 concurrent connections, I shouldn't have to spin up 15 Lambdas to resolve all of those, and then have one of them take 93 seconds so it fails. It makes no sense to ingest on Lambda. And even if it did, having one compute unit spinning up per upload that is now holding and costing money and time for one user doing one upload versus one server, which we have one server per region right now because that's all we've needed. And it's getting it like 10% CPU utilization, doing millions of files of upload. So like obviously better. And it makes so much more sense in the specific use case because this use case is IO bound. We're still running JavaScript on that server. It's still built with a Fastify server and endpoint, but it can have all of these IO bound concurrent things going at once. The only valid point, and this is Eli Talpa calling it out here, the video title implies that serverless is bad and slow. Correct. Because by implying that, I can get more people to watch the video and learn the reality of the situation. The harsh reality is if I don't make a video titled this way, someone else will. And that person probably actually believes it. It will probably make a piece of content that is actually misleading people. Instead, I can take those viewers, I can guide them to an actual resource that has the truth in it with my bias of liking serverless. But to go back to this tweet, nothing has changed. I am still advocating for edge runtimes. I think partial pre-rendering has helped a lot with not needing it for a lot of use cases. I didn't move off of serverless. We added a new piece of infrastructure that is a new specific thing so that I can maintain my serverless building on all of my other applications. The alternative to upload thing existing is every other dev building apps with serverless infrastructure would have to spin up a similar server themselves to do it right. And I don't want Next.js devs deploying on Netlify, Vercel, Cloudflare, wherever else. I don't want them to feel like they have to spin up a server to do this right. So we do it for them. And partial pre-rendering is the term I just said to chat. Partial pre-rendering is a really cool pattern. I have a couple videos on it, so check those out. Principles in truth must be timeless is the kind of thing that closed-minded people who don't want to grow say. Absolutely agree. And I love being wrong. I absolutely love being wrong. I love learning and getting to grow, which is why I'm sad that people call me out for being wrong and changing my mind on things that I was right about and haven't changed my mind on. Why should they have to pay me for that though? Because I have a team of 3 people working around the clock to make a reliable service. Why should they have to pay an engineer to build it for them? Because doing things that are hard costs money. The alternative to upload thing isn't use S3 directly. The alternative to upload thing is hire 1 to 3 people to build this for you internally full time. And knowing how long it took for us to build it, that's not viable for most companies. That's not what you meant, then tell me what you meant, because that's very much seems like what you meant. Like, I cannot see another interpretation of what you said there. I'll sit and wait. I'm curious. You have my attention. Not even just making a mistake, having my opinions on things change. Like, I want to go with like a really good example of one. I was initially really wrong about Tailwind. I wasn't a public figure at the time, but I fucking hated Tailwind for the first like 3 or so months I knew about it and avoided it at all costs. I was building my own component library that I was hoping to open source with styled components. And then I actually tried Tailwind. I was like, wait, this is good. Oh, here it is. I don't mean literally paying engineers. I mean serverless requiring you to launch 15 servers to handle those uploads. We should improve serverless to handle those scenarios. Okay. That is not at all what I understood from your previous message. What do you think that improvement would look like? Because first you have to understand serverless doesn't mean no servers. Serverless means servers with very specific expectations and implementation details. The issue here, the reason that we shouldn't have done this with serverless, even if theoretically you could hold the serverless instance open indefinitely, so the user could upload on the same Lambda for 2 hours straight and it'd be fine, you would still have 1 per person, which sucks. Because now per upload, I am running some amount of compute, and you could easily destroy our bills by just having 5 Raspberry Pis with throttled internet connections very slowly uploading a 500 megabyte file. And each of them is holding a provisioned Lambda instance open that whole time. Could we theoretically rethink the entirety of how Lambda and serverless works in order to make it so one Lambda can handle requests concurrently, in order to hold those connections for longer, in order to not bill based on the time the server is running for? Maybe. But this is a rare case. And to be fully frank, it's the first time I've run into one that isn't WebSocket related since I moved all in on serverless. Similar to like functional programming, which, by the way, watch that serverless video coming up. We're going to be touching a lot on functional programming through it. Stateless architecture is beautiful and is really, really cool. And it lets you solve things in simpler, more scalable ways. And the rare times we have these edge cases, the solution isn't patch serverless so that it works more like non-serverless solutions. The solution is to use a server for those things. You can spin it up yourself. You can pay us to use ours. But if you have a problem with serverless, the solution isn't fix serverless. It's spin up a server. Like one example, serverless can't do databases. You cannot have a truly serverless database because the data has to go somewhere. So the serverless database providers, what they are doing is hosting the servers for you so you can connect them in a serverless environment. There's also the wild shit that Fly is doing with Elixir and Flame. That stuff is really cool. but doesn't necessarily fit with the stuff that we're talking about here, because those Flame instances, those aren't taking a request in of their own. The only way to get into and out of a Flame instance is through calling it on your backend directly. In the future, I'll be sure to title this accordingly. While I still like serverless deployments for most things, we decided that in the specific case of managing large numbers of files being uploaded server side, having a long-running server instance can be beneficial. But this does not change my stance on serverless as a whole. In the future, I'll be sure to title my videos accordingly. Yeah. If I was to change my titles based on what people told me to do, all of my titles would look like this. I did ask the commenters to drop the dumbest things that they have to say about Upload Thing in the replies, so you have a few more fun ones to go through. Typical case of things developers care about but the customers don't. That was what started all of this. Would rather use the much more stable and simpler Amazon S3. And does speed even matter? The user should be fine waiting a few more seconds. I mean, just self-host it. Why do you even call yourself a programmer when you need another service for file uploads? Just build your own infrastructure. It's too expensive. Careful not to step in the bullshit. I don't know if he's trying to say this one dumb, but there was a common misconception. There was two misconceptions with the change that we made with the new Upload Thing stuff. And I'll use this comment from JT Webman as an opportunity to riff those. The first is, doesn't this double your bandwidth costs? Because now we have to eat the bandwidth going into the Upload Thing server, and then we have to eat additional bandwidth going out to S3. Once you're inside of a specific AWS account and region, you no longer get billed on the bandwidth being used between things. So going from one S3 bucket to another, you get billed on invocations, but you don't get billed on the actual data throughput being transferred. Going from an EC2 instance or an ECS instance in our case, over to S3, you don't get billed for that either. You get billed for the events, but you get billed for the event pre-sign post or direct upload like what we're doing. But since it's already in that environment, you don't get billed. And for them, it's way cheaper because it's running inside of the same network and inside of the same warehouse. So I understand why they wouldn't charge for it, but it's important to know that detail. And that's why I have to call out what JT Webman said here, which is instead of pre-sign calls or calling in the end on complete, could we not just run the ingest code on your own server and they can just upload? Sure. But now you need a long-running server with really complex behaviors encoded in it. Like the code base for that ingest server is insane. I can barely follow it, and I've been reviewing it from day one. It's one of the most complex things that I've had under my ownership ever. You don't want to own that yourself, trust me. It will block other things going on that endpoint. So if you're using the same server for, I don't know, authenticating users or loading pages and for uploading files, that's a lot of throughput that you don't want to be dealing with there. It also means, as I mentioned a whole bunch just now, you can't run it on serverless. So if you want a simple stateless serverless application and deployment, and your state lives in your database in an Upload Thing or S3 or wherever else, you cannot ingest the files on your server. You cannot do it. So if you compromise on literally all of those things, and you have a team of 4 people to manage it for you, sure, you don't need Upload Thing. But if you're a normal human or even a normal business that doesn't want to waste your time paying a bunch of engineers to go do this the right way, or deal with the liability of them doing it wrong, because they will a few times. That's why Upload Thing exists. That's why we built this stuff. Because every company, like realistically speaking, every major company that does more than 100 gigs of data transfers in and out of their buckets that are user-facing, they all either should be using Upload Thing or have built their own equivalent of the stuff that we just released. Because doing it any other way is insecure, inflexible, expensive as fuck, and dangerous. Don't do things other ways. And if you don't want to spend the months writing the code that we wrote, I have a solution for you. Anyways, why not just get rid of pre-signed URLs and use something else for auth? How hard can uploading really be? I want to be the next Dropbox. This is going to be too expensive. Better roll my own. This is a good question. How do we do auth for lots of small pictures? I have been thinking about this. This has been the top of my to-do list for a month, figuring out the right solution for that. So Brennan, thank you for asking about this. More coming soon. I want to contextualize the Dropbox comment because it was one of the funniest things ever. My YC app, Dropbox, throw away your USB drive, posted on April 4th, 2007. This was the announcement for Dropbox, which I would guess some of you guys have heard of before. This is one of the funniest comments of all time. I think about this probably more than I should. I have a few qualms with this. One, for a Linux user, you can already build such a system yourself quite trivially by getting an FTP account, mounting it locally with curl FTPS, and then using SVN or CVS on the mounted file system. For Windows or Mac, this FTP account could be accessed through built-in software. Point 2, doesn't actually replace a USB drive. Most people I know email files to themselves or host them somewhere online to be able to perform presentations, but they still carry a USB drive in case there are connectivity problems. This does not solve the connectivity issue. 3, it does not. I have to riff on 2 for a second, actually. We're going to do a quick poll. Do you still carry a USB drive? Yes, sometimes. LMAO, no. And then point 3, it does not seem very viral or income generating. I know this is premature at this point, but without charging users for the service, is it reasonable to expect you to make money off of this? I mean, they do charge. I don't know if they did with the initial launch. What do they say here? There's some unannounced viral parts I didn't get to show there. It'll be a freemium model up to X gigs free, tiered plans above that. Yeah. Overwhelmingly, no, and sometimes. You carry the drive with Linux ISOs. I'm assuming that's, is it Ventoy, the one that lets you do multiple off of one drive? Yeah, Ventoy. I love Ventoy. It fucking never works with Windows installs, but other than that, what else do we have to roast here? I counted. You posted 5 videos about serverless in the last year. Only one states that you're a big fan of it, and even there, you said it's been negative. Took you long enough. Random lazy YouTube comment. There's a lot of those here. If you actually look at the comments, too many. The web dev world is slowly reverting. Soon we literally use 0 NPM packages in just vanilla JS, and our product shipped 10 times faster. The average API response is 0.0001 milliseconds. Not possible, but yeah. This one's actually funny. Rule number 2 when you make an app, make it slow so that when you remove the slow logic in the code, you can brag about how fast it became. That's a fair dig. Wait until he figures out how quick and simple FTP is. I have real users. Sorry. I can't believe, like, literally recreating the Dropbox comment. Like, I thought it was Mimi to bring up the Dropbox comment. No, people are unironically making it in my replies. Bro had 7 major versions in a year. Yeah, we follow Zemver. 7 breaking changes in a year? Still insane. Yeah, because anytime we do something that might break someone's existing implementation, we bump a major. If AWS did the same thing, they'd be on like the thousands. Big companies hide the fact that they're doing this by having you put the date of the version of the SDK you want. They no longer version their SDKs. They require you to specify the date at which you read the docs for the specific expectations that your code has. So no, this is actually normal. Sorry, we're following Semver rules. If you have issues with semantic versioning, cool, take it up with semantic versioning. I think it's good that when we do things that might break for some of our users, that we do major version bumps. In this one, the only thing that broke for the vast majority of users is they had to change the environment variable because we're using a token now instead of the ID or secret key that we were doing before, as I discussed in the uploading v7 video. Yeah, this is annoying. People look at version numbers like they actually mean something, and what they mean is that if you were on the last one and the new one comes out, you should probably read the docs to see what changed. Also, a good comment from chat. If 7 major feature updates in a year seems insane to you, you're working with the wrong companies. Wait, .env change? No code mod? Impossible to migrate. Yeah, we didn't write a giant code mod to theoretically transform all of your code. And a code mod couldn't even handle the environment variable thing. So yeah, we suck. We're fucking over all our users. It's like looking at number of commits or lines of code. Yes, that's a great comparison. It's a meaningless number. Significantly better than the alternative, which is tons of packages shipping breaking changes on patch versions, which happens all the time. Developers love us. Just look at some of these comments. Thank you to UI UX Phil for working on this new mock for the homepage. This is great. Dude, who in the world would ever use upload thing? What the fuck is even that? I'll face reveal if you stop. Honestly, dude, this is worse than I thought. Staying with S3. That's why we stopped sponsoring your channel. Yo, the Primogen, look at this shit. Go back to skateboarding, boy. Hey, that one was me. This really took you 6 months? WTF did you guys do the whole time? I would normally say, like, this is so out of character for Matt, but Matt's been getting spicy recently. God damn it, Phil. I saw that live edit. Josh tried upload thing. Josh cried. Did you really just copy S3 and call it any better? New S3 just dropped. It's even worse than S3 itself. Good job, tech bros. Thanks for the trolling. Appreciate it. This is Phil. Either hire him or follow him on Twitter. Appreciate the roast. Nice soy jack. Didn't even use the Theo jack. Come on. We have a whole like custom soy jack made for this. He didn't even use it. SMH. Thank you everyone for the kind words and thank you for the free marketing from the haters. Appreciate you all a ton. And until next time, peace nerds.